You know, everyone, in my last video, my Blu-ray DVD update, I talked about how one of the movies that I got was DC Superhero Girls Hero of the Year original movie. Now, I know a lot of people would question why someone like myself, or maybe Rob of Planet Rob the Wonderful out of Planet Rob, or anybody else might want to get this. Well, one, if you're a DC comic book fan or a comic book fan in general, you get it because you know the characters. You know who Wonder Woman is, you know who Batgirl is, you know who Harley Quinn is, you know who Poison Ivy is, and it also gets you to know, and it also kind of introduces you to less established characters like Bumblebee, and characters like Katana, even though we know who Katana is from Suicide Squad. But it takes these characters, and what it does is really unique. Well, it's not unique, it's something that's actually been done before, but it takes them and puts them in an environment you wouldn't think DC would put them in, and that's high school. It basically de-ages a majority of them, like Wonder Woman, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, Batgirl to a sense, Supergirl to a sense. Katana. It basically de-ages them to being teenagers attending high school. Now, this is a trend I'm pretty sure a lot of you know of that was probably started back with franchises like Bratz, or even mostly notably franchises like Monster High. And that inspired other franchises to to sprout and have a similar environment, similar plot line. You had Ever After come around. You had, even before some of these, you had Winx Club. You had Witches. You had all these shows that had a similar trend, but they made up for it with most of their action adventure at times. And the story elements, which a lot of people thought was good. So you had all these situations. But most notably, recently, you've had things like Monster High, you've had the resurgence of Barbie kind of go in that direction at times. You've had the Lego Friends portion of the Lego franchise do that. You've had all these different interpretations. Even My Little Pony got into it with the Equestria Girls line. And the reason a lot of this happened is because of that popular trend of putting established characters, or even established characters into a high school environment so they could be more relatable to the young viewer, to the adolescent teenager, or the young preteen, or the tweener, or the kid that's going through the 4th, 5th, 6th grade that's getting ready to go up into high school and up to junior high and high school. Is to make them more relatable, more, now you can kind of understand where they're coming from. And I guess in a sense, kind of give them a revamped origin, if you will, made in a sense. But it's also for DC a chance for them to capitalize on the whole multiverse tagline. Because I guarantee you, people at Warner Bros. And DC realize that not a lot of people are going to like what they've done here. So basically they're going to use the excuse of, hey, it's in a different multiverse. Look at it as a different alternate universe. And that's the best way you could describe it. I mean, why do you think when you have a lot of action figures coming out via Mattel for DC, that the tagline lately they've been using is multiverse? Why do you think that is? Because they know a lot of people will not just accept they know not a lot of people will flat out accept something unless there's an explanation. And that's why you have that multiverse tagline by DC. So when you look at it from a sense, there's obviously 2 to 3 reasons. One is to capitalize that they did the Superhero Girls franchise, or they began this. One is to capitalize on the whole multiverse tagline, which is a great concept. Two is to capitalize on the popular trend of taking established characters, making them younger, and putting them in high school. Three is also the sense to capitalize on the whole promoting of girl power / women's revolution, which is a great thing. Don't get me wrong about that. I like that. It's a great thing. But that's why things like the DC Superhero Girls franchise was made, to invoke all three of those. You know, DC and Warner Brothers, they obviously saw the success that Monster High was having. They saw the success the Equestria Girls was having, even though it was a spin-off of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. They saw the success Disney somewhat was having with the association with things like Ever After and then their own Descendants. So they saw that and they said, you know what, we need to cash in on that ourselves, but how do we do that? And they realized they have established characters in the DC comics. Now you might say, well, why didn't they just take some of the young teenage heroes from Young Justice and Teen Titans and do this? They probably thought about it, but they probably realized not many people know about those characters and said, you know what, let's introduce those characters slowly, but let's introduce them through this DC Superhero Girl franchise and go from there. Which is why you have a character like Bumblebee in there. Nobody really knows much about Bumblebee, so by associating that character with established, well-known characters like Wonder Woman, Batgirl, Supergirl, Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, maybe even Katana, it helps her get more well-known, not just with the younger generation, which is targeted towards, but for the older generation, the established comic book fans, so that down the line, when Bumblebee ever does get put into a darker DC animated original movie down the line, and you know that's one of the reasons she's in this, for that to happen, people will know who she is. They'll know who she is. She may not be portrayed the way she is here in a future DC animated original movie, but at least you'll know who she is because of something like this. And that's the same for any of the less established superheroines or anti-heroines or villainesses. It helps you get to know them better so that if they ever make future appearances, you'll know who they are. You won't be saying, well, who's this? And have to look it up. And what's great about this is you also have other superheroines in there that are established and not as prominent. You have Starfire in there, obviously. You have Raven in there, I think. You have Killer Frost. And she's not she's not a superheroine, but she's sort of like an anti-heroine. Maybe a bully in this one, I don't know. You have Chitara, who could be basically like a bully. In this one, maybe not. So, what's even interesting about this is the roles certain characters take on. Like Amanda Waller, who's very manipulative, very intimidating, and all that. She's not like that here. She's the principal, but she's not like that. She's more like, you know, hey, what's up, girls, kind of deal. Gorilla Grodd is the vice principal, not too sure, but he might, you know, not be as, you know, brute or egomaniac like he is because of his intelligence as he is in other incarnations. Commissioner Gordon being picked as a teacher, or one of the teachers in the high school, well, I guess he's still commissioner of the police force, is a unique character choice always for one of the teachers, especially when it looks like in one of the screenshots that Rob used in his Rob Watches review, kind of indicates that maybe he knows Batgirl is Barbara. I'm not really sure. So, in this incarnation at least. But overall, you take a look at some of the roles that the characters are given, and you say to yourself, and if you're a hardcore DC Comics fan, you kind of say to yourself, why? Why would DC do this? You know, why would they go out and do this? And again, it's to make it more appealing to that younger generation. And kind of capitalize, like I said, on that whole take established characters, de-age them, and put them in a high school environment. And what's even more unique, I'm pretty sure, people have quite unique about this, is fans are going to have questions of why characters were given the certain roles that I mentioned. It's kind of like with Equestria Girls. When Hasbro did that, they needed to give characters like Celestia and Luna and Cadence roles that were kind of similar to what they are in the Equestria world, in Equestria, in the pony world of Equestria. So they needed to give them certain roles that were similar. So Celestia's principal, Luna, vice principal, Cadence, teacher or superintendent, don't really know. But still, they gave them roles very similar to what they had before. And by doing so, at least it gives fans that may or may not be fans of the Equestria Girls spin-off acknowledgement like, okay, Celestia being principal, that equals to her being the head princess. Luna being vice principal, that means she's the secondary head princess. Vice versa, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, it's equal to that status. It's equal to that. But, you know, going back to what I'm saying here, you know, this is nothing really new, especially if it's capitalizing on that popular trend. It's nothing really new. What it is mainly is, if you will, is DC throwing their hat into the cash cow that has become the popular trend of taking the established characters, female characters, putting them in the high school environment and seeing where it goes from there, so it can appeal to younger girls and a younger generation, as well as capitalize on the whole multiverse tagline, which they're doing with this, because that way you can look at it as being in another universe. And secondly, it helps continue to promote that whole girl power, women's revolution thing, movement. So that's why it's being done. We may not agree with some of the choices as to why certain characters are being portrayed as superheroes now. Like even Rob pointed out, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, Killer Frost, Chitara, Katana, you know, they may be portrayed as anti-heroes or or bullies or whatever, friendly rivals, if you will, here, or superheroes. But yet, hardcore comic book fans know that if you look at any other incarnation, they're a far cry from that. Harley Quinn is basically anti-hero at best. Same with Poison Ivy. You know, same with Poison Ivy. Katana, assassin for hire. Killer Frost, villain. You know, villainous, if you will. Like I said, Poison Ivy, Killer Frost, villainous. Chitara, villainous. So, you know, fans know them for that role. Amanda Waller, intimidating manipulator. Gorilla Grodd, super villain with an high IQ, thinks he's better than everybody else, can control people. You know, things like that. You know, fans are not used to seeing them like this. And that's why, in a sense, this also is DC's way of capitalizing on the whole multi-universe tagline. This way, they don't have to worry about fans complaining about, you know, oh, these characters got ruined, because it's not that case. It's just another alternate universe where they exist in a world similar to what you see with Ever After, Monster High, and the My Little Pony Equestria Girls lineup. That's what it is. And I think honestly that's how we should look at it. So my take on it is I'm okay with it as long as we look at it, ladies and gentlemen, from a multiverse standpoint. I mean, you take a look at a lot of these action figures and you say to yourself, well, why do these have these taglines? Well, it's because you're getting action figures not just based on movies that are out or coming out, but you're also getting them based on established comic book arcs like The Killing Joke, The Dark Knight Returns, you name it. So, you know, and even Endgame and whatever. So that's why you get it. So that's why you got Mattel releasing the DC Comics Multiverse lineup, because of that. And again, that's how you should look at it with the DC superhero girls. Not because, it may not say multiverse on there. Some of them may say it in fine print. But but my thing on it is my thing is, look at it from that standpoint. Don't look at it as anything else, and just enjoy it as just another alternate universe franchise. So of DC Comics, it's part of the multiverse. That's how you should look at it, because it's doing three things: capitalizing on the multiverse tagline, capitalizing on the trend of taking established characters, de-aging them, and putting them in a high school environment as teenagers, a la Equestria Girls Ever After and Monster High. And third, it's capitalizing and promoting the girl power / women's movement revolution, or women's revolution movement. That's all it's doing. So let me know what you guys think about the whole DC Comics doing the DC Superhero Girls franchise. Do you look at it as just being part of the multiverse? And do you think it's going to be a success for them, or do you think it's going to blow up? Let me know down below. I'll talk to you later. I got to get ready for work.